Arcadia Middle School 8th grade math teachers meet to talk about Common Core math exam questions released from New York State, how to utilize those for review, as well as strategies that will help students be successful.
Well, I just thought it was interesting that it said more than 2. I mean, maybe we should go back to the standard and kind of pick that apart a little bit more, because remember the release question that Tom sent us? That was only 2 functions. So
Yeah,
I'm a
properties of 2 functions. It doesn't say 2 or more, it says 2 functions, each represented in a different way.
Yeah, maybe.
Algebraically, graphically, or numerically in a table or a verbal description. It says 2. It doesn't say or more.
So,
Good.
for example, given a linear function.
that one has 3. So I mean,
So you could
It
say
is what it is,
2
but-
or more.
yeah, I feel like this topic, we are able to assess this now. I mean, now that we've done linear, and we haven't. So I did pull some stuff maybe, but keep that because I was thinking about that sheet, and I think we should.
The
add
linear
those to
test did 2. It didn't do more than 2, but it did
Yeah.
do 2 because there was a lot of
couple,
questions
yeah.
where it was presented in different forms.
it. Construct linear functions with given properties algebraically, graphically, and verbally.
Wait,
We haven't
what?
assessed that either.
We haven't assessed it, but we've done it. Like the
Right,
fire
we've
model,
done it,
is that what
yeah. But then warm-up 17, I started pulling. I definitely feel like we should do this either next week or the week after. And assess them, and collect data on
Because
it.
that goes, okay,
Yeah.
aligns
That's-
with what you were just, this margin target.
But we took a look at all the released questions, and we separated them into the 3 categories: expression equations, geometry, and statistics, probability.
Well, it's really just
Really
stats, yeah.
Then from there, we took the piles, we pulled out all the multiple choice. And we looked at that, do we like that, do we not like that? So having the state released ones have really helped, and that's
Guide
why-
us where to go.
Yes. Other thing that really kind of hit home with Tom being here last week was talking about that you maybe are tackling 1 problem a day.
Right, instead of multiple problems crammed
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
like going
Because-
in depth in one.
Here's what brought us back
Yeah.
probably
To what we were talking about at Collegial Circle.
4 or 5 years ago, was having student work up there and the kids are looking at it, deciding, is it full credit, is it partial credit,
Oh,
is it no
right.
credit? Which there are some examples where I remember in the past that there's barely anything written and the kids are like, that's a 0! But it was like actually 1 point.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to put tons down, you can still get credit. So with the release questions, they included student work.
Oh.
So we thought that for their warm-ups, it might be longer than a typical warm-up, but they're working through it, and then the next part of class, now based on what they wrote, let's look at what the state would give it. Where do you fall? Did you have enough to get full credit? Did you make the same silly mistake that they made? So that's going to take up a big chunk of class, but that's okay. I think
Yeah.
that the conversation around this
Yeah.
could be powerful, should be powerful.
Right.
Remember when we had like a pink, a green, whatever, blue, and
Yes.
whatever. So some of these same types of things, where if you look through some of the student work that's already given from the state, it's perfect for that. Where they have to decide which one is right out of the 4,
So it's the same question on there, it's just different work. One of them is perfect.
and they have to.
So then as a group, we're deciding, like Jen and I are looking through it, we decide that it's the blue, and then it's 3, 2, 1, hold them up.
Right.
And if
And
they
then
have
you
the right.
easily see which group's got it correct.
And if they're doing if we're doing competition or whatever, then the groups that get it right, they get a point or whatever.
And that's following all the lessons on the exemplars, so they're used to being anchored into knowing how to pick.
Okay.
Every time a kid is looking at one of these problems, that they should be having some hints that should be written down. Like if I see this question, first thing that should be in my head is what's my y-intercepts? Is my line positive? This one, which number? I should know my hint is subtract. And we talked about with the word problems. Okay, so you underline, okay, I have to add. I have to have them in the same form. And the rule of bigger coefficient, smaller exponent. There should be, what are the 3 things? If I'm going to get this question right, I have to do all of those things.
That's
for
kind of what
points.
Tom was getting at, because remember when he sent us that question, then we responded.
I
and
know,
he
that's
was
where my brain was when you
he
guys
was
were
like,
talking. I was
"Don't tell
thinking,
me how
but
to
he
solve
was
it."
like, I know how to solve the question. He's like, I
A
want to know
strategy.
how are you gonna help kids be able to understand the question. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that that's kind of along the lines of what he's talking about, because it's like, all right, so if you see this question before you even like start answering it, what do you need to know for it?
I do a lot of think alouds with my groups, and I do a lot of, I'll joke about like their inner Mrs. Shivari, speaking to them. What would I be saying? What's in your head? What should you stop and think about? And I'm giving them a lot of language. I'm giving them a lot of ways to think about it, and I'm repeating myself over and over and over. And I'm always doing those think alouds.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about too is like that last question on the warm up that we were just talking about, the one with all the words. And I feel like, again, at PLC the other day, Tom gave us that sheet, and on the hint sheet, the very first thing, it kind of made me laugh. It made me laugh because the very first thing it said for a hint was to read the problem, and I'm thinking,
They don't.
that's where they fall down.
It is.
Like
they
they
just
look
will
at
go
that
straight
question
to the graph.
and they don't.
They don't.
And it says which one's going faster, and
This
then
is the sheet.
they'll see the question that says which is going faster, which brother's going faster, and all they see is the graph, and then they'll say, I don't get it. Well, that's because the rest of the problem is in the reading.
Yeah.
You know what
In
I
high
mean?
school, they used to, some of the science classes use the acronym BRUTE, B-R-U-T-E, and they made little laminated cards and they would hand them out on test day. And they're supposed to actually use the card to block, B is block all the answers. They're supposed to block all the choices.
Oh my gosh, I like this.
R is read,
It's so my thing.
then R is read, U is underline, T is try. Try what you think the answer would be. Now, of course, for some of the
Read.
questions that say which
Yeah.
which
You have
answer is
to-
not,
yeah.
is not a solution or whatever, you have to actually choose from your choices. Eliminate.
Eliminate.
And that.
Try, and then you look at your answers and you eliminate
I like that too.
based on that. But they had a nicely little like color coded card, like an index card that had the BRUTE laminated, and the kids would actually have that as a tool
Now-
then to actually block the answers with.
I really like it a lot. I also wonder though,
I love putting on tell
Is
yourself
there
what you know.
anything
Is for the try.
specifically that you can say, be more specific to like underline? Underline what?
Right.
Because
Well,
they
that's-
underline everything.
That's why I was saying that I feel like
So
we've been doing
Keywords. Read
numbers.
carefully. Read every word. What is?
What
You know
are
what
they
I like?
underlining?
You know what I like? What is the question asking? What is the question asking, and what would be reasonable? Because
like what-
if they're like way off when they're trying it on their own, they're not. And sometimes that comes after you've worked it out, going back and saying, "Well, is this even reasonable?" Sometimes you can look ahead at the choices and eliminate right away because it's not reasonable. What if we made it rate? R for read, A for ask, T for try, and we could still do E for eliminate. We can make it rate, and plus it goes with our unit. Take the B out. We don't need block the answers. I think.
Yeah.
I actually think that's a great strategy though.
But we can teach them. We can teach them. Put
Sometimes
this
it
card
is.
there.
That's the problem. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. Like, why would they go through and do this whole thing?
Because
like
I
what
would
you
just
said.
do this. I would block and I'd say -1. And now I'd say, oh, okay, boom, boom,
Right.
gone.
I
That's blocking.
agree.
Because to me, there are kids that look and pick without any
But
Yeah,
we
we
can
can
teach
teach
them
them
said,
to
though,
block
you
with
can
that card.
eliminate
We
it.
don't
Oh, there
have
you
to
go.
make
The
it-
card
we don't
is
have
the
to make-
blocker. So
we
your
don't have to
first
make it
step
a letter.
is your card is it's not even a line. I like that.
You don't
That
have
your
to
card is
write
your
it
block.
down.
I like that.